Our heading has some logic associated with it. Let's extract it into a functional component. First, we will stop the start process. Don't really need it since we're going to be staying in TDD mode the whole time. And let's also put this back in a simpler setup with just a simple heading, and then get rid of these. So with that in mind, when I save, my test should still pass. Our heading was more than just text on a screen. It had a click handler that used some state on the component. We're going to extract it into a DOM component, a presentation component. We'll start by making our test fail for the new component we're about to write. And obviously this fails. So let's go over and implement this as a React functional component. We'll do it as an arrow function that returns the H1 that we have below. So now that that is implemented here, I can come back over to my test and let the IDE help me do the import, save, and my test passes. Although my test passes, my app is not using this component. Let's fix it, but let's first write a test. We're using Enzyme's shallow renderer, which doesn't go into subcomponents. So let's change to using Enzyme's mount, which does a full rendering, including children. We'll write a new test. That's an arrow function. We will make a wrapper, and I'm going to need to import that. And you can see on line 4 that the import is now in place. And I'm going to import app as my component. I'm going to expect the wrapper to find a heading with the text, and I'll do a new line and an indentation to be hello React. And so with that in place, I've got an app, and the app is going to look down and get all the child components. So now we're ready to change the app to use that child component, which I'll do here. And my test should still pass. Note that the IDE does the auto completion on the heading component. On to the single responsibility principle. We have two components in the same file. React tries to promote single responsibility. Each file does one thing, one component. Let's move the heading to its own file. I'm going to cut this line. I'm going to make a new file called heading.tsx. And I'm going to paste my component into it. And I need, in this case, to export it as a default. And here's the way I see this a lot in React styles is you define it, and then you export default heading. Clean this up. It says that it's not being used at the moment because we haven't added it back on the other side. And now we need to do the same over here for the test. I'm going to take the test out of here. I'm going to make a new test file for the heading. Paste this in, got some import errors. And I want to get this from heading, but what I'll do just to be safe is to delete that line, and generate the import. Let the IDE generate the import. So this should now pass. We'll go back to the app file and clean it up. It's missing an import, so it needs to be able to get this from the heading that we just created. And then I will head back over to the test file, clear out its imports. We don't want to be getting from here, from where it was imported, so I'll delete that. And now when this test runs, it should run fine. With that in place, we can make one more change to adopt a little bit more TypeScript. When I look at the heading, I see that I'm not really declaring what kind of value, what type of value the heading is. And we can use, from React's types, we can say that this is a functional component. And that will help a little bit later on what the values are for the generic and the props and the state, etc.